All right, we're live. So, hello everybody. Welcome to the Rookies YouTube channel. My name is Rafael. I'm an animator working at Method Studios in Montreal. I'm joined by Anthony Labrecque, who won the Rookies animation contest, which was a really fun contest. The theme was Crazy in Quarantine, which is, super thematic with COVID-19 going on this year. So we had a nice open-ended theme of Crazy in Quarantine. The goal was to do an animation with 1 or 2 characters, whatever you like. And yeah, this is our winning entry here. And we're gonna go through and do a fun little critique of it. So if anybody's watching on YouTube, welcome, and hope you enjoy. So I'm gonna play it back a couple of times first. We'll just watch it, and then we'll get into doing a bit of a critique and writing a few notes on it. We'll kill the music, but yeah, it's a nice shot. So like any critique, we'll start with the pros. We'll start with a bit of praise, and then we'll get into some notes.
All right.
Overall, it's a super nice shot, man. Overall, the best thing. So it was definitely the best animated shot of the entries, in my opinion, because there's no major area that sticks out that needs fixing. The base of the animation's working super well, which is what I like the most. There's no usually in more junior animation, you might see, timing issues or a weird jarring pop or a moment that stands out that you think, oh, that could use a bit of fixing. But this everything's working well. Of course, we're going to review it and I'll give you some notes, but it'll be a lot of polish and a lot of ideas to make it better. But the base is working super nicely, which is really nice. So it's a nice shot to get some notes, build it to the next level, and then you can put it in a reel, and it's all working really well. Also, I like the idea is cool as well. For Crazy in Quarantine, it works really well. It was a little more unique than some other entries, and I feel like everything works. Like the fact that it's a spaceman wearing a mask, thematically works with COVID as well. The fact that he's doing exercise on a treadmill at home. With a gag, that works as well for me, and of course a little virus clusters flying through. All of it was cool. So it was the goal was to have fun with the idea, and it looks like you had a bit of fun with it. So it was cool that you got creative with it. Nice. And also one thing I really like as well is the beats of the plant falling at the end. So let me just close it area there. Just like that plant falling at the end, it's top notch, man. It's so good. I love it. I love it because I feel like a lot of what an artist is usually in the details, say, because I come from a drawing background, and when you look at a drawing somebody's art and you look for the details, I feel like that's really where the artist is, where they focus on this is what I'm going to draw, this is what I like the most. A lot of an artist is in the details. So a little detail like that, it's just it's funny, it adds a bit of a fun touch to the animation, and it's not something everybody will do. It's something that you chose to do, and I think it's a nice little detail. And watching it a few times, you just catch it. It's the beats after the guy falls, and it's it works super well, super well. It's such a small thing, but for real, I love those little details. It's what makes animation a little more fun, a little more unique. So nice little touch there. But that's enough praise.
All right.
Let's get to
the real thing.
Let's get to the real thing. So, okay. So what I like to do is usually I'll watch animation a few times. I'm just going to close an area for, let's say, around here. And I start to look at what's the first thing that starts to catch my attention that I would like to fix. If I was doing this animation, what would I want to fix first? One of the first things that stood out to me was the hands are just a bit simplistic throughout. So the general posing for the body, the dancing, it's so cool, but the hands, they just feel a little static mostly. And I think you could just do, slightly more exciting poses, open up the fingers, do a few more fun things. So specifically, I think in areas like this, where you have both hands doing practically the same thing, it'd be fun just to break up those poses. So I'll go ahead and draw some stuff, and we'll add a note in here. So I think it's honestly just as simple as like opening up the fingers. It's super simple stuff, but it's what makes the animation a little more interesting. I think it's fine that he has two open hands, but just the closed fingers together, it feels like the default pose of the rig.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just something we always want to avoid. We don't want to feel like we're not animating, we're not adding a bit of life to the character. So for me, I would definitely just look at some areas like this where you can add the hand poses, and we'll make them a little more exciting. So let me just add a little note here. Fantastic. So yeah, it's just a few areas like this. The same could be true, throughout this moment. I think you could do a little more with the hands. It doesn't help too much that the hands are kind of stacked on top of each other. It'd be nice to get a little more open. So maybe one hand's over here, one hand's over here, and they could have slightly different poses. Maybe this guy has slightly more open fingers, and this one's already starting to close over. So a little more clarity in some of the poses with the hands, and also just the general posing of the hands. I think will make them a little more exciting. It's just about opening up the fingers and not having the default pose is the main thing. Because yeah, overall it's working well, right? Like it's not like you have bad poses. There's no really odd pose that catches your attention, but I would definitely do a bit of work to just loosen up those hands. I think it goes well with the theme of the character as well. He's dancing, and yes, he's in control of his body and the motions he's doing, but I'll totally open up some of his finger poses and get him a little more exciting. It was just the first thing that caught my attention, because as you watch the character moving, he's doing a lot of fun stuff with his body, but the hands are static, and it catches your attention for two reasons. The hands are green and they're quite large in comparison to like his other limbs. He's got quite a lot of hands. So really getting in there and doing something fun with the hands. I would just get like some cool finger poses like this, open up the hands. Show a bit more thumb as well. Yeah, I think I've just started to add a bit more life to the character. Let me just add a few notes like that in here. So yeah, that's a general note that you can kind of go throughout and get a bit of life in the hands. They start to distract a bit the more I started to watch it a few times. You do have some variation in poses like this, but even here, I think we could do a bit more. I think we bend some fingers, and you get a few more open. Here we can pop the thumb out this way so it's more clear, and then maybe hands and the pinky's a little higher, or the pinky sticking out. He's doing something a little more funky. He's dancing and having a good time, so let his hands have a good time as well. It's the general idea. Fantastic. Yeah, on the note of the hands as well, I feel like you do feel the arms and the hands kind of twinning a bit, and the motion taking place at the same time. It's true throughout this area where both hands start to move at the same time, and they hit their M pose extended at the same time, and it's just a little detail to start making the character feel a bit more organic. I would just start to offset those arms as much as possible. So sorry, not as much as possible, but it'd be super simple because the character's dancing, so his movements are kind of controlled, so it's really a matter of offsetting one of the hands by like one frame. It's there once a little frame later. It's a few like little basic things, but it adds a little a little extra bit of realism to the character.
Like one or two frames is enough to feel the organic movement.
Yeah, exactly. I really think it's that it's just making sure that they don't hit a pose at the same time simultaneously. Potentially as well a little rotation on the hands, so that it could be as simple as having one hand just be angled down a bit more, and then it rotates into that spot there. Maybe that alone gives you like a little nice ease into that pose. But I think just editing the pose to make sure they don't twin and hit simultaneously. I would focus on that throughout, and I think you will find that it will start to make the character feel quite a bit more realistic. And it'll be super subtle, but it'll be one of those details that you can feel more than you can actually see it. Because once you offset it 1 or 2 frames, the overall animation will look super similar, right? Like the end goal won't be too different, but I think you would feel it that the character feels a little more natural in its movements, a little more less constrained, a little more relaxed into his dancing. So let me add a general note here of easing into poses and offsetting. And yeah, it's really just a general note. So this area works better because you're doing different things, right? Like this hand's doing one thing, the other one's dancing. So the note is not really true for this area. It's really mostly for this section. When the hand's going down, they're kind of doing the same motion together, and boom, start to go together. So just breaking this stuff up will make the animation feel a little bit nicer, I think. I would keep it subtle, but it'll be cool. Then the other sort of main area that was starting to catch my attention, it was the hips. So as I started to watch it, especially I think throughout this walk, if we watch it together, the hips feel a little bit stiff. As you can see through this area, like I really feel this line along the hips. So it's moving super nicely with the leg because the leg's doing a lot of movement. But this area here, it feels quite tense. Like there's no movement on the hips, like rotational movements, like back and forth. It's also true throughout his jumping moments and his dancing. It feels so constrained to just what the body movements is doing. Because his dancing, the hips are super important. You really want to loosen up the hips and give him like some really nice bouncy, rotating, dancing hips. So just going through and loosening up the hips will be super nice. I think it'll add so much to the animation. And it's true just while he's walking as well. Throughout his walk, this hip, say if it was flat on, it should actually be a little more angled nicely and rotating this way.
Yeah.
Which then gives us room to come back this way and angle the hip this way and rotate it a bit that way. And I think I would push the rotation quite a bit to get that fleshy feeling on his hips, and you can tone it back down afterwards, but I'll really push it and see how it feels with quite loose hips and maybe he's loosening up as he's walking into the shot because he gets into the rhythm and he begins dancing, but I think focusing on the hips and loosening them up a little bit will start to add quite a bit to the motion. Through him like this, you can see the leg come forward, but the hips are not really doing too much. And we really want to get those hips being quite active for a fun dancing shot. I would also push them up and down as well throughout this bouncy area, a little more than you have now, and just really get a nice a bouncing ball motion on those hips. And as they're bouncing, they're rotating this way, they're rotating that way, they're rotating back this way. You get that nice wavy feeling to the hips. It could be really fun throughout this dance. I think it's to add a lot to the character. So let me just throw a note in there for you. Loosen up, then bouncing hips. I feel like a lot of the notes are not going to be too big. Like I told you, the bass is working really well. I love to see like these little additions just to make the character, feel a little more loose and a little more fun, and a little really nicely animated. It's really it's really what gets it from being really nice the way it is right now to being like if it was suitable to be like in a film, you know, like once you get into the film quality, it's all about the details and how well you can make, you know, animate every part of the body to feel super realistic and organic. So the basics working super well. I think, you know, you loosen up the hips, you loosen up the hands, you add a bit more motion, and suddenly like even those notes just there, I think it starts to feel so much nicer.
All right.
So let's I'll keep going through some notes that I took down. Yeah, I was the next thing that kind of caught my eye was his entry into the shot. So we have the character here coming in through this door. Fantastic, it's fun because you're like, what the hell's going on? He's like going straight into his walk. And it totally works when I watch it. Amazing, it works. You know, he just like it feels like he doesn't have a care in the world. But I think a hint of you know how he opened the door could be perfectly fine. You know, so let me just go here. Potentially, I was thinking. So it's just in an area where you can add a variation in the motion. You know, so instead of walking the whole time, maybe he you know burst in to the door with a bit of a kick, you know?
Yeah.
He kicks the door down, he's there, he's got his hands kind of relaxed behind him, in his body like this. So maybe it's just a kick through the door. So you would have the door here, if I just switch colors. Maybe this is the door, and the first thing you see is just like the foot coming through as he kicks his way through the door.
Yeah.
Alternatively, you know, we could have another door. Maybe he comes in, you know, backwards and like opens the door with his butt as he's dancing his way in, you know. So it's little details, but I feel like he, you know, opened it with his butt and kind of rotated into his walk.
Yeah.
I think even just pushing the door, a hint of something different in the way that he enters. It's a little more fun and just gives you a bit of variation in the animation. So it's just this is the area where we start to go into more like suggestions. So if you want to jump back into the shot and you thought, okay, cool, I might want to add it to my animation reel. I think adding a little more fun posing to it could help it. So in this case, yeah, I would just think about his entry into the door, because it comes from the mindset of always, you know, trying to get into the character, trying to think what the character's motivations are. And you know, he's walking on a treadmill. We'll find out later, but I think whatever, you can have some fun with it and make it imaginative. So having him do a little crazier of an entry, something a little more dancing themed, considering he's dancing the whole time, I think will be pretty fun. And it just gives you an opportunity to do a cool pose as well. I did enjoy the best kicking pose here, but you could really, you know, get crazy with the angle of the character. You know, maybe he really kicks his way in, and as he comes in, his body's, you know, is all contorted backwards like that, and his head's backwards, and he's dancing. I don't know. So of course you have to try and see what works.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think you could do some fun stuff with it. It'll be cool to see. In any case. It's always what I do when I'm doing personal shots. You know, like I'm always sketching out ideas, and before I get into animation, just really trying to think, like, I always get an idea first, and then I think, all right, what's like the next level? What would I do to try and make it a little more fun, a little different to other shots, other things I've seen before? How can I make a character a little more fun in his delivery of whatever he's doing? And sometimes it's as simple as changing an entry that works perfectly well to something a little more fun, a little more creative. And of course, I feel like you know, it's not too much more work, in the sense that you might see the first phase of that pose, and then it just transitions into this walk nicely. So
yeah,
it's just adding a little something extra to make the beginning pop. Purely an idea, you know, it's really an idea.
Yeah, but I can see it working like really well into the animation.
Sure. Yeah, this will be an area where, you know, once I have time, maybe you're a bit busy with school, but once I have time, just like draw some fun poses. Like, what would be a cool way to make this a little more exciting, and bam, you do some extra animation on top of it. Just some ideas. Another area that started to catch my attention was the viruses, you know, the virus clusters. So they're cool. It's a fun idea in the sense that it's quite unique. You know, I didn't expect to see the guy walking through viruses as part of the composition, but it works super well. On further inspection, I think, again, as a suggestion, as an idea, they could potentially be doing a little more creative, a little more fun paths through their fly. You know, all of them are flying quite static and quite straight lines across the scene. It totally works, but I think, you know, having a shot where we have some viruses flying like this, or some, you know, going around the character, spinning around them and flying off, again, it starts to add a little more character to the secondary elements. So I would consider thinking, how can I make the viruses be a little more interactive and not just linearly flying across screen? Like I mentioned before, it works well, but I guess the more times you view it, the more it can become boring quite quickly. And the goal is to, you know, have exciting stuff happening in your shot so that people watching it might watch it 2 or 3 times. Same with somebody reviewing your reel, they want to watch it a few times, and they might notice, oh, I never noticed this cluster at the back doing this little fun twirly shape and then flying off screen. So yeah, and again, like, I'm not sure if it will work for sure. Maybe what you have right now kind of works because the focus is on the character, but it's something I definitely would try to see if we can make the COVID guys a little more interactive, a little bit more part of the shots. If not right now, the main focus is the central guy, and it's easy to ignore this COVID cluster just flying slowly across the screen.
Yeah.
And then some of the others kind of fly a little too fast, and they just they get out of our attention quickly. So we don't really have much time to engage with them as a viewer. Again, just an idea. I think I would loosen them up and let them have a bit of fun as well. On the note of the COVID classes, and we keep talking about them, this guy here that he bats away as he's dancing, I think a little more clarity in the posing, in the framing of how he gets it away will be cool, you know. And I think it's as simple as having the COVID cluster like that, and you see the character's hand here. It compresses, you see his elbow, and then potentially he pushes it away. And we get a nice, like, straight arm pose out of that. There's a character there. So this is like an idea that I get from, so I come from like a drawing background where I grew up just drawing cartoons or whatever. I'm not an amazing artist, but I know how to draw a little bit. And if I was going to draw a character, you know, pushing away some sort of big virus, I would never draw like a virus and then a character behind it, like obscured. You know, you would look at that and you would think to yourself, like, what's this character doing? I can't really tell. I would always draw this virus, and I would draw, you know, the hand separately, make sure it's nice and clear. I would draw the character's arm nice and clear. I would want to see their character's face, perhaps. But just give myself a different color for clarity. So this will be the character's head, and, you know, this hand will be pressing nicely against this virus. So over here we have the character obscured completely behind the virus, and it's just not as clear as it could be. And it's a small moment, and we understand that he's pushing it away, but it's just a matter of unstacking those elements so that you can more clearly see the idea of what you're trying to tell. And I think you could play with it by adding a bit more resistance. You know, like, it comes in, it compresses against him, and then he pushes it away. And I think that'll make it a bit more clear and a bit more fun as well. So I'm always, it's the principle of, like, you know, going through your animation. So it's something I do with all my personal work. You know, you go through it, you stop at a few random frames, and you just think about how you could improve the posing. Like, what would I do if I was gonna draw this to show it to somebody for clarity, you know? So I stop at a frame like this, and I think, okay, cool, this is an area that we can improve a little bit. I think it's fine that it obscures his face, but I think definitely being able to show the character's hand is the most important aspect. So you could leave your posing almost exactly the same, but you know, the hand will make contact with the COVID cluster here, and then compress backwards and compress this way. So we see the character's elbow, and the elbow could be like this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So you'd feel the curly cluster kind, then he pushes it away. I think it's cool that he kind of ignores it. You know, he's really like in his dancing tune. He doesn't have to like look at it and kind of react. It's fine if he just comes towards it and he pushes it away and he keeps on dancing. That's
and
fun.
It brings some asymmetry into the posing also.
Exactly, which is always something you're trying to build into your animation. So, so again, so this goes with the idea of making the curved clusters a little more entertaining to watch. I think his interaction with them as well, you can play with it a bit, and it can be quite fun. On that note as well, just while we're on the topic of the little viruses flying through, again, just as an idea, as a suggestion, I was thinking perhaps you want to, if you wanted to add a little more, you know, extra to his animation, I would consider how he interacts with it, you know. So what you have right now is working cool. I think potentially you could have say you have your character like this with the virus coming through. Maybe it comes through and he maybe he leapfrogs over the virus, you know, like he puts his hand on it and he gets his body there and he jumps over one of the viruses and he goes under his legs. So this again is the idea of just what can I do to make my shot a little more exciting. I thought potentially he could also, you know, reach out to one of the viruses, you know, grab it and sort of guide it along like he's dancing with it, you know, grab the virus, pull it across, dance, twirl with it, and then push it away. So I think he could be a little more interactive with the viruses rather than just pushing it away if you wanted to. And again, if it's with the whole dancing thing, he's not too interested with the virus. He's not too afraid. Amazing. He kind of grabs it, dances with it, sends it away. He's living his life. He's got his helmet on. He's not too afraid of catching COVID in this instance. Yeah, I was just thinking, what could I do to make it a little more fun? I think he's walking the whole time. Amazing. Let's make him, you know, push one down and jump over it and evade it that way. And that gives you the opportunity to have a virus that comes like this, and then, you know, dips underneath him and then flies away, and you get slightly cooler parts out of the viruses, and you get a more dynamic pose out of the character, you know. we can break up his walk cycle throughout. So it's perfectly fine he's doing a walk cycle because he's on a treadmill, as we find out. But I think breaking it up and adding something a little more dynamic, you know, I think a fun jumping pose like that with his hands down and legs sticking out could be pretty fun. Just flexing my drawing skills. And I'll throw in a note in here about interaction. Because yeah, so personally, I love the viruses. I think it's a fun approach to the shots. It's a fun idea, and it's all working well. So then I think there's such a unique element. You know, nobody else did a shot with like giant viruses flying through. I think how can I include them a little more into the shot? How can I make them a little extra? You know, a part of the little story that you're trying to tell. I think you can have fun with it, and it could make the shot a little more, you know, just visually interesting. You're watching, you're like, oh, okay, cool. I think he's doing some fun ideas over here, so could be fun. And then if I was going to look at another sort of like area that I would love to address personally is the end as he flies away. So let's get into it. So he's doing his thing, and he falls, and the timing is super nice. The timing is perfect. He falls over, and how quick he gets out of the screen, all of that is super nice. Again, the notes I'm going to give are just purely like once I get into like the frame by frame and studying the motion and how the character's behaving, then we start to look at some areas that we could address. The timing works perfectly, which means just you add some nice posing on top, and you're golden. You're off to the races. The main thing I'd love to see is it's a little more interaction with the hands and the environment. As he flies off, he's practically in one pose, not doing too much, and it's such a fun area to do some fun stuff with the hands. I think in general, the reaction of tucking his hands in is not the most realistic. I think often when people fall, their goal is to either stop their fall forward or to try and grab onto something. So I think you could have a little fun with the hands as the character falls. Just loosen them up and let him do a crazy pose as he reaches out to grab onto something.
All right. Yeah.
And yeah, you could really, you could do some fun stuff like one hand low, one hand over his head like that. You could do a bunch of things. You could also do more like a cartoon, like whoa, as he tries to like grab onto something but misses. You could do a bunch of things that are a little more interactive and fun to watch than the character tucking in his hands, which is cool. But I think it's not the most realistic response to falling over. And then especially considering he's on a treadmill, I feel like he would have made an attempt to grab onto one of these, So
yeah.
You could really have a hand here, the last few fingers still holding on, and it's really coming down like that. Potentially, his head's still dragging over here, and his body's hitting the ground. And then you might have another hand over here. Yeah, I think it's a more natural response, and also gives you much more interesting posing. In this case here, you have your character and like his limbs are all stacked over his torso, and the head is not dragging behind, and I think we're losing. You have an opportunity essentially to do cool shit, and the goal is to try to do cool stuff with your animation. So making the most of that moment, I think will be helping the animation a lot. And then as he drags away as well, I'd love to just loosen up the hands. I think you have the opportunity to do like a really cool, like cartoony stretch with the arms. But I'd love to see, like maybe there's a hand over here and it's really dragging behind. Maybe you have another hand here. And it's really, they're doing really cool stuff. And it's like the motion which works so nicely as the body drags away, the hands come through second, and all of that, drags your attention off screen. But yeah, you could do some really fun stuff with the hand here. The fingers really dragging onto the ground, and it's only like for a few seconds. You hardly see the moment because it's so quick. The timing is working well, like I mentioned. It's just to loosen up the hands, and it's really so that you're pushing the animation into that film quality level, so that a reviewer or a creator looking at your shot will stop on a frame like this and be like, okay, look, he really paid attention to the little details, even in a fast moment like this, where the difference between doing these changes and keeping it as you are is not super drastic, but
yeah, it's only a couple of frames, but we're gonna feel it in the animation.
Exactly, you totally do, and it's what we do for work. The goal is always to try and do the most fun stuff that we can, to find the most interesting dynamic poses. And again, I always just think if I was going to draw this for somebody and try to show them clarity, I wouldn't draw the character falling down with his hands tucked into his body on both sides. I really would love to loosen him up, and the hands will be doing something else completely. They'll be reaching out and trying to grab onto something, and somebody would look at that and more clearly tell that a character's falling over. A character like this with his hands tucked in might look more like he's flying out in outer space or something. So, which is suitable given the spaceman, but it's not quite what we're going for here. So, yeah, I would love to loosen up the hands. And as you do that, it gives you the opportunity to do you know, some fun some fun arcs with the hands as well, you know, because the hand started around here when he was dancing. They come here, they miss, they go to the ground, and from there they lead your eye off the screen in that direction. The whole time you're doing a really nice big arc with the hands, and it's leading us to the principles of animation to do, you know, arcs and beautiful motions that are appealing to the viewer, appealing to the eye. So I think loosening up his hands throughout this moment will be really cool. And you know, really, that should be the last thing that we see at the very end. You know, you should have a hand over here, just like dragging the way. He's like, whoa! He really tried to grab on, but he couldn't hold on. And it'll be a fun little detail. You're doing it perfectly with the hand, with the legs over here. I'm glad that we can see the legs a bit, and they didn't all like just disappear off screen at once. You kind of offset that disappearing. It's cool to do that. So you're doing it perfectly with the feet. I think just seeing a hand at the bottom, just like reaching out the last second to try to grab onto something to save his life, will be a cool moment. And just get a drink of water. So yeah, the the moments I'm giving suggestions on, like the posing and the actions are the bigger notes that I would consider for this shot. I can give you other notes, but a lot of it will be so much smaller. For example, upon reviewing it a few times, I did notice you know, a bit of knee pop, especially like in the first part of the animation. And it's a super small thing, but it's something you want to fix for sure before you call this final, and you know, you want to showcase it as your best work, you know. And again, knee pops are really the very final thing you ever fix, because you don't want to have just too many attributes to fix a pop and then you make a change to your body, you know. So I would do a bunch of changes. I would make your body work better. I would add you know, those posing changes if you feel inclined to do so. And then at the very end, when you're calling it down and you're like, sweet ass, let's render this and put it in a reel, I would go ahead and make sure that your legs are all feeling super smooth. Usually your rigs have like a stretch attribute or something that you can use, but moments like this are a little too intense, and they catch my attention once I start paying attention for them. So it's not a huge culprit in this case, but the more I watch it, the more you realize that there's a few strong pops that we can get out of the motion. Let me just throw a quick note in here. Pops, let's erase them. That's really minor, and it's really towards the end of your production. You wanna, that's when you're really doing the last like 5% polish to make sure every single bit of your motion is super smooth and super fun to share with people. And another idea to keep in mind is it's just posing in general. Make sure that you're not stacking elements on top of each other. You know, the hands moving together in unison is cool. He's dancing and he has an idea of what he wants to do. So your arms are going to move in unison. We discussed just offsetting about 1 or 2 frames. Amazing. But you know, just offsetting some of these poses, so their hands a little higher, their hands a bit lower. Just like unstack some of those elements. It's super important throughout the animation. You're always going for like full clarity, and in this case, if we just look at the silhouette, we start to like kind of lose. This could look as just one giant hand if we look at the silhouette. So yeah, we want to avoid that. And again, it's like maybe just offsetting your motion by 2 frames is enough to do that, because one hand's leading the action, the other's following behind, and potentially that already unstacks your silhouette. So I think keeping an eye on that, because you know, especially here as well, he gets quite tight into his body. I think you could find another way to showcase what you're trying to do. Maybe he rotates his torso out a bit like this, and maybe he gets one hand a little bit higher, so it's over here perhaps. And it could be like that. Maybe this hand could be like that. So maybe just rotating his torso to open up his body gives you the opportunity to showcase some of that posing a little more clearly. And you have, like, you know, all this negative space over here. that would give a lot of clarity to the silhouette. So if I was looking at this pose and this pose, maybe this is a little more clear in terms that he's got his arms open because he's going to go into some sort of dancing pose. Whereas this, it's hard for a viewer to tell us what this hand behind here is doing. So it's just it's an exercise in going through your shot and just like, where can I build a little more clarity into my poses? Potentially your pose is really good and maybe all it needs is just to be rotated a little more towards camera so we can see what the character is doing. Because right now we saw the arm traveling up and we know that he's putting his elbow out. So we know what he's doing, we just can't see it. So I think just aiming some of their body, just opening up towards the camera could be nice and help us with the dancing motion. Plus it'd be cool to loosen up the upper torso as well and just let him dance towards camera, let him dance this way, and both ways it gives us a little clarity in the animation. And just before we talked about loosening up the hips, and I wanted to mention the same applies for the head. So the head is the best part of the head is this moment here where he does like a kind of sigh or he does like a motion like, all right, let's get into my dance, which is how I'm reading it. So the head is working really cool there. But as we progress through the shot, you can feel the head remain quite connected to the torso. And I think you would want to loosen that up as well. And it's as simple as just like letting his body do this and the head kind of, rotate it because he's dancing. And when you dance, I think if you shot some reference and you looked at yourself, you would find you don't often turn your entire body and your head together, depending on the dancing that you're aiming for, But I think loosening him up and letting his head kind of rotate a little separately, a little offset to his body, again, gets him into that rhythm of dancing, and it could be nice as well. It's always just about that feeling of making the character feel more organic, The whole time we're looking at as much as we think about posing and making sure that everything looks beautiful, like in an artistic sense, we also want to make sure that physically it's all working well. And you have to think about like the muscles, how his body's behaving, how his torso moving affects the head, and all these little details that you add as you keep progressing and polishing your animation. So like everything you have is in a great state. I think if you aren't going to keep progressing, you start to think more of those ideas. Like in this case, everything's working well. You just have to offset the head. So you grab the keys, offset them in your graph editor, and that could be enough already because the head is already doing the right stuff. It just needs to be separate to the body so that we can feel, that the muscles of the neck and the chest and the head are not like one solid piece. But the general, like what it's doing, the head is doing all the right stuff. It's not disconnected from the body, which is not what we want. We just want to offset it a little bit to make it a little more relaxed and organic, and letting him enjoy his dance essentially.
I was wondering, like, if I want to put this after the corrections in a reel,
yep.
Like, would you keep the black background or put a plain? Because I was wondering if the up and downs were like clear enough.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Because he's moving and dancing, but he's essentially always like in the same space.
Yeah.
On the screen. For me, I would totally keep it the way it is because it's the way the shot is, and it's fun.
Yeah. It's like the story of the animation, but I feel like the feet we understand it's working okay, but the hips, I don't know if we see the up and downs enough.
Yeah, I thought the same. I thought you could. I think doing a pass, just loosening up in general, and potentially trying to add a little more like side to side movements.
Mm-hmm.
Is maybe what we're missing more than up and down. Up and down, I want to add it, of course, but a little side to side so he doesn't feel locked to this area of the camera. I also don't know how you did the shots, and if you have the camera sort of parented to the character, so they're moving simultaneously. Maybe loosening up the camera and letting the camera sort of maybe add a little handheld motion might be enough to make the hips not feel so stuck in one area of the screen.
All right. Yeah.
But personally, it works because, like, you know, the story of the shot is cool. The fact that it's against a black background is a bit different. If you were to add a bit more of those viruses flying through and doing interesting stuff, it works with the black background. It's an interesting idea, and it gets you wondering, like, what the hell am I watching? It's a little different. If it's just inside a room, then it's just a character dancing in a room, and it's a little less original. So I'm super happy for it to be a black background. I'm happy for it to be original, but I agree that loosening up the hips in the sideways translations could accentuate the shot a little bit.
Right.
Overall, it works. Overall, it works. Maybe it does need a little camera motion so that we're not just focusing the character on one area of the screen. There's not too much else going elsewhere. But even though adding a bit of camera motion, I would keep it quite subtle. I think for me, it works as the shot is, and I would totally include it in my reel. I think back to like my work when I was a student, and this is super nice. Like the general motion of the characters is realistic. It's working well. Timing's nice. So I think it's a nice shot. I'd love to make it a little crazier, but that's, you know, if I was giving myself feedback when I was a student, I'd be like, man, get crazy, you know, have fun with it, do a little something more. The goal is always to practice, to show a little extra, to push those boundaries. So it's kind of the advice I would give myself, just like I was saying, you know, the way he interacts with the viruses, like just a moment or two, you know, like the virus in the section where he enters through the door, add a little crazy posing in there, and then it works well with the more subtle dancing throughout the scenes. But yeah, I think it's a good observation about the hips and them sort of being in the same place in the shot. But he's always dancing. We understand that we're following him because the viruses are kind of moving across. So it works well. I think it works okay.
Cool.
And I saw you mention in your notes about the gag with the laces, you know, because the laces is the thing that he trips over.
Yeah.
And how to add more clarity to that? It's a tricky one. So potentially you could show the laces earlier, so they kind of pop into frame. I think it kind of works, you know, like it's an animation and you don't have like a full-on production, you know, you're not going to have simulated laces running around or whatever. So the idea still works. Maybe you do want to bring them in earlier, and because I see that you have the ability to rotate them, I wonder if you do just show the laces on the character and they're kind of just bouncing up and down as he dances, you know?
Yeah.
Because you totally could show them earlier, and then maybe at some point they do kind of unlace, and then from there it starts to stay a bit long on the ground, and then he steps on it.
Yeah.
So that is my suggestion. I think if you have the time, and I don't know what your little laces rig is like, if it's friendly or not, but so I'm guessing probably I don't know. So it'll be up to you whether you're willing to animate some laces. But even just the basic, you know, having the lace shape on top of the foot, and then, you know, just doing this kind of movement as it's dancing, I think at least it will be there. And it'll be a little something extra in the character. It's nice, always nice to have those secondary elements moving, of like the clothing pieces, and you know, potentially having it there earlier and seeing it unlaced.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing that you watch it a second time, you go, oh, okay, that's the reason he fell over, because of the laces. And I think it'll be a nice little touch to make sure the emotion is working nicely, and that the story reads with clarity. I don't personally mind it too much. You kind of don't really pay attention to the feet anyways, and then at the point where he's kind of falling over, and you realize, oh, okay, you know, you can see the laces clearly. So for me, it still works. And for an animation like this, I wouldn't get too crazy. But if you had the opportunity to have the laces showing earlier and and doing the cool stuff that we're discussing, I think it could be nice to include it. But yeah, I think that's about all the major notes I had from my end. Excuse me. Because yeah, the general motions are working well. So if I was going to give you like an overarching idea, it's just to loosen up his body in general. You can totally have the torso rotating more.
Yeah.
They could rotate offset to the hips. The moments where he's dancing with his hands like this as well, I would totally loosen up the hands as well. I really look at the arcs the hands doing and just like really let him just dance and enjoy his time dancing. I think it'd be like my mindset going into the shot to push it a bit, just like everything. Their hands can be more loose, their head can be more loose, their chest. So to an extent, you don't want everything to just kind of loose like he's some sort of zombie. But yeah, I would look at moments where he's dancing and like, what can I do to make the dance feel more natural? Like he's just he doesn't feel so stiff. Because it works well, but the more I watch it, the more I feel like he's just a bit constrained. Like he's hitting these poses, hitting those poses, and he's gonna fall over. Whereas I want to just kind of see him dance, maybe a little more natural, maybe a little less symmetrical in some areas. And I think it'd be my major focus going into it. Other than that, it's you know, some of the notes I gave you, but all of it is a bit smaller. You know, the hand poses, it's a general idea, and it wouldn't take you too long just to break up the fingers. It's not adding a whole bunch of new poses, but just opening the fingers instead of having them all tight together. I think you can get this so quickly. So yeah, the overarching idea is just let him loosen up and have fun with his dancing. Everything else works nicely. But yeah, those are the major things that I'd be happy to give you critique wise. And yeah, I don't know if you have any questions for me or before we call it a wrap.
No, I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Of course, man, no worries. You're super welcome. And congrats. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but you won first place. So if anybody made it to the end of the video and they're watching it on YouTube again, Anthony was our first place winner. So animation is super nice and it works well. And yeah, congratulations on winning. And cool. In that case, thank you anybody watching on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in and supporting the rookies. And we'll catch you around next time. I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording.